It had been 40 long years since our protagonist first fell into this mysterious world. He stood amidst a fierce battle, his heart pounding with adrenaline. The clash of swords and the roar of the enemy echoed around him. With a mighty swing, he delivered a devastating blow that not only struck down his foe, but also altered the very landscape they fought upon. Today, the battle had finally reached its conclusion, and a weary smile crossed Sung Woo's face. Beside him, 3 valiant comrades shared in their triumph. Together, they had defeated the ultimate demon king that had plagued their world for generations. As they caught their breath, a divine figure materialized before them. She was Gaia, the goddess who had watched over their journey. Sung Woo, the hero with fiery determination in his eyes, glared at her. Sung Woo's voice trembled with frustration as he complained, "Gaia, why did you bestow great abilities, items, and companions upon others while I received nothing?" Gaia, her ethereal presence shimmering, tried to conjure an explanation, but Sung Woo's anger burned brightly. The goddess wondered why Sung Woo possessed such exceptional strength. As her celestial form calmed, she humbly inquired about the rewards they sought. The brave orc warrior stepped forward, his battle-worn face showing determination. He wished to be sent to the next battlefield, ready for another challenge. The cute cleric, her eyes filled with the memories of past adventures with her comrades, didn't request anything more. She was content with the bond they shared. Then, the elf archer stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. He sought the power to travel between dimensions and master formidable weaponry. Gaia was intrigued but asked why. The elf declared his intentions. "I wish to use this power to spark a revolution, to aid the oppressed and the weak races." Sung Woo nodded in agreement, his resolve unwavering. Gaia turned her attention to him, curious about his deepest desire. Sung Woo, already possessing wealth, power, and the ability to traverse dimensions, had but one wish. His mind traveled back to the first meal he had tasted in this world. A memory etched in his heart. "I want to return home and open a restaurant, to share the flavors of this world with Korea," he declared. The room fell into stunned silence. Sung Woo's desire was unexpected, but it resonated deeply with his comrades. Even Gaia couldn't help but comment, "The food from this world is the least appetizing among all dimensions." Sung Woo drew his sword, his determination shining in his eyes. "It's not fair that only I get to experience such lackluster cuisine," he proclaimed, ready to take on this new quest. Before we continue, take a moment to answer the question of the day. Who is your favorite character in specific manhwa, and why? Let's debate. Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out. Now, back to the recap. Meanwhile, in the city of Seal, a place once known for its wealth and peace, a man watched in despair as monstrous creatures ravaged the streets. The emergence of mysterious gates had brought forth these nightmarish beings, erasing the city's name without a trace. The man, Kong Hyuk, cursed under his breath. A woman by his side, recognizing his despair, urged him to protect his dignity amidst the chaos. "You are Kong Hyuk," she reminded him, and he straightened his back. Kong Hyuk grumbled about the never-ending overtime hours, a result of the strange influx of monsters in the area. His weary eyes caught sight of a peculiar monster that seemed to be fleeing from something even more menacing. It abruptly began to rain, and Kong Hyuk's cigarette was extinguished. Feeling the weight of exhaustion and frustration, Kong Hyuk decided to take a break and hopefully satisfy his hunger and stress. He wandered into a nearby neighborhood and stumbled upon a humble-looking restaurant. The hunger gnawed at him, and he couldn't resist the temptation, despite the closed sign on the door. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Sung Woo had compiled a list of things he needed to do upon his return. He planned to relax and enjoy a movie, savoring the ordinary pleasures of life. As he stood before the closed door, Kong Hyuk forcefully pushed it open, unaware that his path was about to intersect with a hero's journey. Kong Hyuk chuckled as he glanced around the empty restaurant. He couldn't help but find the situation amusing. However, Sung Woo's voice turned menacing as he leaned in closer, reminding Kang Hyuk that the shop hadn't officially opened yet. Kong Hyuk shrugged, pretending not to care, and boldly requested food, oblivious to the movie fan's irritation at having his peaceful moment disrupted. As Sung Woo observed Kong Hyuk more closely, he noticed the thin and frail appearance of the young man before him. It struck him that Kong Hyuk hadn't recognized the closed sign, and a pang of sympathy washed over him. Sung Woo imagined Kong Hyuk going hungry, and his eyes welled up with tears at the thought. Kang Hyuk, on the other hand, grew increasingly frustrated, feeling pitied by Sung Woo's tears. To make amends, Sung Woo decided to serve his best meat, a dragon's meat infused with the essence of a flame spirit that paired perfectly with grape juice. Sung Woo couldn't contain his excitement, reveling in the joy of cooking for his first customer. However, as Kong Hyuk heard a strange screeching noise emanating from the meat, he couldn't help but panic. He turned to Sung Woo with a puzzled expression, prompting Sung Woo to reassure him that it was nothing to worry about. Sung Woo skillfully garnished the meal and presented it to Kang Hyuk, who couldn't help but be impressed by the presentation. Sung Woo proudly named the dish the Rhea steak and attempted to slice the meat for Kang Hyuk. To his surprise, no matter how hard he tried, the blade wouldn't cut through. Sung Woo offered to do the slicing himself, realizing that Kang Hyuk was much weaker than he appeared. Kang Hyuk, who had been the elder of the Red Dragons for 1,800 years, watched in amazement as Sung Woo easily sliced a portion of the steak. He cautiously took a bite and felt something strange. His body trembled, and he exhaled a burst of fire. Kang Hyuk realized that the food didn't taste good at all. Sung Woo claimed that it was intentional, explaining that it was a dish meant for survival and strength, which was why it had to taste horrific. Kang Hyuk wondered what to do with the meat in his mouth, but had no choice but to swallow it. As the minutes passed, his body burned from the inside, and he lost consciousness. An hour later, Kang Hyuk awoke to find himself on the ground, facing Sung Woo. Anger welled up inside him as he launched an attack, convinced that Sung Woo had betrayed him. However, Sung Woo effortlessly blocked the attack, feeling disappointed that Kang Hyuk remained weak despite consuming the Rhea steak. Sung Woo couldn't believe that someone like Kang Hyuk was part of the First Order, a group consisting of the 100 strongest hunters in the world. He sensed that Earth was in grave danger, but he hesitated to intervene. Then, an idea crossed his mind, and a menacing smile crept onto his face as he looked at Kang Hyuk. In the wake of the appearance of monsters, a new occupation had emerged. Hunters. The mightiest of all hunters bore the prestigious title of the First Order. Kang Hyuk, now aware of Sung Woo's formidable strength, offered a respectful apology. Sung Woo cautioned him against repeating the same act in other restaurants, making it clear that he wouldn't tolerate such behavior elsewhere. In Kang Hyuk's eyes, Sung Woo was an enigmatic foreigner with the power to end his life at any moment. Sung Woo then made a solemn promise. He would transform Kang Hyuk into a stronger individual, capable of defending Earth. And with that, Sung Woo began to share his thoughts and plans, his words flowing like a river. Kang Hyuk contemplated resisting, but it soon became evident that Sung Woo wouldn't release him from his newfound mentorship. With little choice, Kang Hyuk reluctantly agreed, resigned to endure Sung Woo's relentless chatter. He couldn't help but wonder about Sung Woo's past profession, and to his surprise, he learned that Sung Woo had been a middle school teacher. Sung Woo's first lesson was about the value of food, but Kang Hyuk couldn't accept that the Rhea steak qualified as food. This earned him Sung Woo's scorn, and he was compelled to finish the rest of the steak. Kang Hyuk's complaints continued, but Sung Woo pushed on, shoving food into his mouth until Kang Hyuk could only think of his mother before succumbing to unconsciousness. Sung Woo, determined to prevent Earth from falling into ruin, dragged the unconscious Kang Hyuk to a hidden location. His plan was to strengthen the hunters, and he believed that Kang Hyuk was the first step in achieving this. Meanwhile, back at the headquarters, they couldn't establish contact with Kang Hyuk. Okifi, a member of the Second Order, was dispatched to investigate Kang Hyuk's whereabouts. He found the situation troublesome, but proceeded to the neighborhood where Kang Hyuk had last been seen. Utilizing his detection skills, Okifi quickly located Kang Hyuk and reached Sung Woo's restaurant. He deftly picked the lock and began searching for the entrance to the basement. Just as he was about to make a breakthrough, Sung Woo emerged and labeled him a trespasser. Sung Woo warned that he would defend himself. In the basement, Kang Hyuk paused his digging as he sensed someone approaching. Hope surged within him as he anticipated being rescued. However, Okifi passed by him, revealing that he too had fallen into Sung Woo's grasp. As they continued to expand the basement, Min Okifi complained about Kang Hyuk's actions, mentioning that he had offended a monster and attempted to harm him, yet he found himself lacking the energy to follow through with his threat. Kang Hyuk's stomach let out an audible growl, breaking the silence in the basement. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of hunger, and Min let out a resigned sigh. Min suggested apologizing to Sung Woo, noting that he seemed like a rather uptight person. To their surprise, Sung Woo unexpectedly told them they could leave. Min expressed his gratitude, but Sung Woo insisted on serving them a meal before they departed. Kang Hyuk, never one to hold back, complained about the taste of the food. Sung Woo calmly explained that they had a choice between something tasty and something horrific. Without hesitation, Kang Hyuk opted for something tasty, and Min also decided to go down that route. Sung Woo, with ingredients in hand, began preparing the dishes. Min was impressed by how Sung Woo effortlessly removed the fish odor while cooking. Sung Woo, noticing that Min might have a heart or liver issue, decided to make medicinal food for him, showing a different side of his culinary skills. Seeing Sung Woo cook normally, Kang Hyuk congratulated Min on his choice. Kang Hyuk took a bite of his food and felt ecstatic, but couldn't resist complaining about how someone who could make terrible food could also make something so delicious. Sung Woo generously offered additional sauce before turning to prepare Min's meal. Min was prepared to take a risk to uncover the truth behind his choices. He stared at the porridge with a mixture of worry and curiosity, wondering if there might be something unusual hidden within. Kong Hyuk commented on how inedible it looked, and Min continued to gaze at the dish. Sensing the flow of magic power, realization dawned upon him. The porridge was the same as a healing potion. Min marveled at how Sung Woo could prepare it so quickly, but attempted to confirm it. Sung Woo, however, signaled for him to remain silent. Bravely, Min took a bite and felt the healing magic course through his body, although the taste left much to be desired. It was a do-or-die situation, and 30 minutes later, a cheerful Kang Hyuk discovered his comrade, who had been totally blanked out, fully healed. Min's injuries were gone, and his magic power had returned to normal. With a smile, he offered his heartfelt thanks to Sung Woo. Kang Hyuk, intrigued by the turn of events, asked for more food, which he eagerly finished. Min then asked Sung Woo if he could help with the upcoming monster raid. Kang Hyuk, however, interjected, reminding Min that Sung Woo was a returnee with no obligation to fight for their sake. He argued that Sung Woo's motives were not for their growth or benefit. Kang Hyuk believed that they needed to overcome their hardships on their own. Min retorted, calling him ridiculous, and seeing through Kang Hyuk's concern that the rankings in the First Order might change. Kang Hyuk, with a hint of cuteness, admitted that Sung Woo now intended to help him become a better person. Sung Woo agreed with Kang Hyuk's initial assessment, expressing his weariness of witnessing kingdoms meeting destruction. Min, sensing that it was best not to pry further, asked Kang Hyuk to leave, closing this chapter of their unusual encounter. Sung Woo warmly invited Kang Hyuk and Min to visit him occasionally, especially Kang Hyuk, who felt a pang of discomfort in his stomach. He couldn't help but complain about how Min could eat such stinky porridge. Min chuckled and wondered when Kang Hyuk would realize how fortunate they were to have met someone like Sung Woo. The following day marked the boss monster raid. Kang Hyuk and Min armed themselves with their weapons and courageously joined the fight. The news later reported their successful subjugation of the boss monster, but Kang Hyuk declined an interview for the first time due to his persistent stomachache. Sung Woo felt relieved that they had accomplished the mission well. However, the appearance of the gates still weighed heavily on Sung Woo's mind. He contemplated entrusting the safety of the world to the hunters, while he took a well-deserved break. With one more week before opening his shop, he began preparing for the big day. But just as he was about to relax, he noticed something outside. A cute talking cat appeared with a delivery. This cute pawed creature was called an Ailuros, known for their exceptional intelligence, culinary skills, and keen senses of smell and hearing. Ailuros were known for their strong work ethic and their ability to care for others, but they also had a knack for inducing laziness in people. Sung Woo remembered asking Gaia for one, although he had only requested Renato, the cleric, for a pudding slime. It appeared that an Ailuros was also part of the package. As Sung Woo considered the implications of having an Ailuros in his restaurant, he worried about cat fur being scattered around the place. The Ailuros assured him that it didn't shed its fur, prompting Sung Woo to test its claim. Curiously, the Ailuros shared that it had knocked out a god known as the Meow God. When it first met Sung Woo, the Meow God had declined to accompany Sung Woo, deeming him a dangerous warrior. The Ailuros realized that training was the key, and they had trained diligently until they subdued the Meow God. Sung Woo could now understand why Renato had sent the cat to him. Despite their culinary talents, he could still sense traces of cluelessness and airheadedness in the Ailuros. Sung Woo jokingly claimed he had retired as a warrior, but the Ailuros begged cutely and was eventually hired as an employee. In the end, they greeted each other warmly, and Sung Woo decided to name the Ailuros Nabi. The next day, two neighboring restaurant owners decided to spy on their new competitor, but instead were surprised by how great the food was. Wholesome. At a later time, Min visited the restaurant to enjoy a meal. As he prepared to leave, he reminded Sung Woo that someone from City Hall would be inspecting the establishment. They intended to assess whether an Ailuros was fit to work in the food industry, and whether they posed a threat. Sung Woo recalled a previous visit where someone had told him to register as a returnee. Min explained that it was standard procedure to check those who aimlessly entered Earth. He also mentioned that the taste evaluator was a returnee. While Nabi was outside, diligently sweeping, a man suddenly appeared out of nowhere, surprising the Ailuros. Nabi scolded the man for startling him, and the man apologized, asking if the shop was open. However, Sung Woo was in the middle of watching a movie. Nabi regretfully informed the man that it was closing time, leaving the man disappointed. However, Nabi kindly offered to cook for the man, who eagerly accepted the offer. The man requested kimchi stew, which was an unfamiliar dish for an Ailuros. Nabi started to prepare the meat, but struggled with the seasoning. As he moved on to the vegetables, Nabi brought out an unusual onion, and his despair grew as he realized that he might have cooked something entirely wrong. The man, Park Sung-han, could immediately tell that the dish was kimchi porridge, not stew. Just then, Sung-woo appeared and noticed the man's despairing expression, as well as Nabi's confusion. Park Seung-han introduced himself, and Sung-woo could sense that Seung-han had experienced a difficult time in the other world. Sung-woo decided to make kimchi stew for him, understanding that as a returnee, he likely craved hometown food. Sung-woo was determined to make sure Seung-han wouldn't forget his cooking. He began by cooking with pork, and told the perplexed Nabi to come and learn how to make it. Sung-woo continued to cook, while Nabi observed and took notes. Nabi became confident that he could now cook kimchi stew. The delicious kimchi stew was served to Seung-han, who had been craving it while in the other world. His eyes welled up with tears as he realized he was back home. After finishing his meal, Seung-han confessed that he had spent 13 years in Terra, while only 6 years had passed on Earth. He found the management on Earth to be perfect compared to Terra. Sung-woo wondered if Seung-han had returned of his own volition, but Seung-han explained that he had been forced to return when exploring a dungeon and subjected to a dimensional expulsion magic called banishment. Sung-woo considered Seung-han lucky, but learned that Seung-han had a wife in Terra as well as an Ailuros. Seung-han couldn't help but cry as he remembered them. Sung-woo offered to help him return to Terra, and Seung-han eagerly accepted. With a snap of Sung-woo's fingers, a portal appeared beneath Seung-han, and he fell back into Terra. Nabi expressed concern that Gaia might get angry at Sung-woo for using dimensional magic so casually. The next day, Sung-woo and Nabi visited Sector Street Market. While browsing, Nabi noticed something unusual. A giant clam, something Sung-woo couldn't believe he was seeing on Earth. He asked to buy it from the merchant, who claimed it was only for decoration because it wouldn't open. Sung-woo insisted on purchasing it and lifted it, determined to find a way to open it. Back in their kitchen, Sung-woo used his strength to pry open the giant clam. Inside, they discovered a substantial amount of flesh. Eating it raw with sauce alone was enough to make Sung-woo crave soju. However, he decided to make clam chowder with it. He wondered what to do with the venomous pouch of the clam, which could grant poison immunity. Nabi grew anxious, wondering what Sung-woo had in mind. Sung-woo planned to make someone eat it as a preservative, but just as he was about to start butchering the flesh, customers began arriving at the restaurant. Min wondered if Sung-woo had found the clam in the river, which surprised Sung-woo. Min mentioned that there had been complaints about loud noises coming from the sewers, and based on the hunter's investigations, there was a small dimensional fissure suggesting that a gate might open soon. Nabi later served the clam sashimi, and Min informed them that a special task force had been dispatched. Kang Hyeok was nowhere to be seen. Sung-woo found the recent coincidences, like someone returning to Earth and Haragigas appearing in the rivers, to be unusual. He noted that the species that considered Haragigas as snacks were the Gigante, who were over level 90. As Sung-woo reflected on recent events, he began to wonder if they were somehow his fault. Meanwhile, Kang Hyeok complained about being dispatched to the sewers instead of being in the spotlight. Ji-hyun, another member of their group, also questioned when they would be on standby. Just as Ji-hyun attempted to speak to Kang Hyeok, the ground began to shake, signaling an outbreak. Everyone swiftly prepared for action, checking the rank of the gates. Ji-hyun fell to her knees when she discovered that it was an overranked gate filled with powerful monsters. She couldn't help but fear that their city might disappear without a trace. Kang Hyeok encouraged Ji-hyun to use a stabilizer and hold on. He offered to sacrifice himself to use the stabilizer inside the gate and instructed Ji-hyun to find the warrior's restaurant and explain everything to the owner. He emphasized that they could only survive with his help and ordered her to move. Ji-hyun, though appearing tough and carefree, left to carry out Kang Hyeok's instructions. Kang Hyeok, trembling with fear, ordered the others to deal with the monsters that would emerge from the gate, while he ventured inside alone. Inside the gate, Kang Hyeok and his team struggled to hold their ground against the monstrous creatures. A massive beast threatened to trample them, but someone suddenly intervened, swiftly dispatching all the monsters. To everyone's astonishment, Sung-woo appeared, leaving the soldiers speechless at the sight of the dead monsters. As Sung-woo entered the gate, Kang Hyeok took cover and set up a screen. The Gigantes, towering giants, began approaching the gate, perplexed as to why it wasn't expanding. Frustrated, they started breaking through the screen. Kang Hyeok, hidden from view, prayed for Sung-woo's arrival. As the Gigantes moved amid the debris, Kang Hyeok found himself in their path. The giants noticed him, and he attempted to fight back, but his bullets proved ineffective against their massive forms. Just as Kang Hyeok faced imminent danger, Sung-woo made a dramatic appearance, unsheathing his sword. His formidable aura drew the attention of the gigantes. With swift and precise strikes, Sung Woo easily cut all the giants into pieces, leaving Kang Hyuk in awe. Sung Woo located Kang Hyuk and didn't hesitate to reprimand him for hiding. Although he hadn't intended to kill the gigantes, the situation had left him with no choice. He collected the artifacts and lifted Kang Hyuk, a seemingly reluctant slacker, with him as they left the gate. Sung Woo threw Kang Hyuk outside, satisfied that everything was now under control. He quickly returned to his restaurant and Ji Hyun approached him, seeking his assistance. Sung Woo decided to hear her out before making any decisions. He soon discovered that Kang Hyuk had ordered Ji Hyun to ask for his help before heading into the gate. This revelation made him see Kang Hyuk in a new light, and he couldn't help but chuckle. Sung Woo assured Ji Hyun to relax, promising her good news soon. After kicking out some noisy customers who were bothering Nabi, Sung Woo wondered if Ji Hyun was also a hunter. He flashed a menacing smile and offered her a meal, feeling a bit down about not having hunter customers. His food had the potential to enhance one's abilities, but he needed to dangle some tempting bait first. Sung Woo began diagnosing Ji Hyun, leaving her wondering if this place was indeed just a restaurant. He claimed to have the perfect dish for her. Suspicious, Ji Hyun questioned Sung Woo, wondering if he had resolved the gate outbreak, as she hadn't received any updates on the gate opening. She recalled the manual on treating returnees. Sung Woo noticed that Ji Hyun had organized her thoughts, so he explained that he was making clam chowder. Ji Hyun was shocked to see the monstrous clamshell and called Sung Woo crazy for serving a hunter monster meat. She initially tried to refuse to eat, but then remembered the manual. Sung Woo continued to cook, following the normal recipe until it met his taste standards. He served the dish to Ji Hyun, who took her first bite with trepidation. To her surprise, the dish tasted delicious and refreshing, prompting her to remove her coat. She was glad to enjoy a dish made from a monster. Meanwhile, Kang Hyuk attended the S-rank gate hearing and persistently reported that a restaurant owner had defeated the above-ranked monsters inside the gate. However, his claims were met with disbelief. Frustrated, they scolded the carefree Kang Hyuk, expressing concern over the presence of such a monstrous returnee in the city. Kang Hyuk advised the manager not to make an enemy out of Sung Woo, emphasizing that provoking a returnee could lead to the destruction of a city in an instant. He then attempted to leave, but the manager grew angry and smacked his clipboard on Kang Hyuk. Meanwhile, Min brought other hunters to Sung Woo's restaurant and warned them not to be rude. It appeared that Sung Woo and Min had a deal. When the other hunters saw Sung Woo, they initially thought that the one who had saved them was someone who looked like a mad killer. To them, Sung Woo had an aura that resembled an idol. Food was served, and as everyone took a bite, they found the dishes to be delicious. Sung Woo was pleased to have more promoters now, drawing other hunters to his restaurant. He planned to gradually introduce them to eating monster meat, secretly expanding his influence. On a day off, Sung Woo decided to watch a movie and noticed a second-hand shop selling weapons. He also spotted Nabi from a distance with a friend. He went in to watch the movie while the little girl, Yoon Ha, moved around Nabi. Yoon Ha remembered her mother's words about making new friends and decided to buy chicken skewers. She offered one to Nabi and asked to be friends. Nabi happily accepted, glad to have an earthling friend. The two quickly became friends over a chicken skewer. Meanwhile, Kang Hyuk groaned over the news that the president of the World Hunter Association would personally come to check the situation in the sewer. It seemed that there were some enemies to deal with in the area of the recent gate break. Kang Hyuk activated his invisibility to move out, while Min and his team also went on their mission. Min immediately confronted the gangsters, taking their weapons, and his team arrested them. They reported that they had caught 13 gangsters so far and continued their hunt. Later, a restless manager was surprised to hear about a power outage while Min and his team were navigating the sewers. It turned out that there was an electric user who could absorb electricity. Min assured the manager that the gangster would faint soon from an overload. True to his word, the gangster eventually fainted. Meanwhile, Sung Woo was peacefully watching a movie when the power suddenly went out, abruptly stopping the screening. Sung Woo felt depressed and asked the goddess for a reason. Gaia sensed an itch and informed him that his district was not affected by the power outage. Feeling stressed, Sung Woo decided to relieve it by eating. He brought out an ice shaver and planned to make shaved ice. Typically, it was served with sweet red beans and cereal on top, but Sung Woo intended to make an alcohol-based shaved ice that his late father liked. He began by making the shaved ice as normal, and then poured alcohol from his inventory on top. He immediately tried it, and could now understand his father's taste. He invited Nabi and Yoon Ha to join him. Soon after, two tired hunters appeared at Sung Woo's doorstep. Min had an urge to kill the branch manager, and Kang Hyuk just felt exhausted from his recent experiences. Sung Woo could see that the two newcomers had a rough time, rushing to take care of things, because a high-ranking official was supposed to visit, but didn't appear in the end. Sung Woo understood that it was a situation worth getting mad about. Kong Hyuk begged for something delicious to eat that day, so Sung-woo decided to make a healing dish and told the two to wait. Meanwhile, Perot, an anthropomorphic creature who had ended up on Earth after getting caught in a rift, was receiving support from Ji-hyun with his heavy office work. He complained that Earth's food didn't sit well with him and that he felt homesick. Ji-hyun empathized with his feelings. Then Ji-hyun remembered something. Perot later went to the Warriors restaurant, and Sung-woo welcomed him. However, he wasn't permitted inside the shop due to his fur. Perot confirmed that he was homesick and became upset about being treated like a counselor. While he did recall the Uric species back on Terra, which were known for being cruel and violent, the intelligent Perot might not be one of them. Nabi arrived with various ingredients, but after 3 hours of cooking, they hadn't produced any satisfactory results. Perot apologized for the inconvenience, and Sung-woo swore that there was at least one dish that Perot might have liked. As Perot prepared to leave, Nabi started exercising intentionally to expend his energy. Nabi moved around, and Perot noticed him having fun. Sung-woo suggested that Perot should also engage in physical activity, as he had been sitting and working for too long, which could lead to lethargy and excess belly fat. Later, a tired Perot went down after some physical activity, and Nabi used massage magic to help burn fat faster. Sung-woo realized that there was a hidden beast within Perot. He then thought of something to cook: Frenchburg baby food, known to be from the warrior family in Terra, designed for lazy children to increase their vigor and combative nature. Sung-woo began by mincing the meat, seasoning it, and turning it into meatballs. He applied magic originating from an ice dragon and served it to Perot with a sauce. Perot devoured the meatballs and suddenly underwent a transformation into a vicious-looking creature. Groaning with madness, Perot followed Sung-woo's lead and attacked a dummy. Nabi brought out more dummies, and Perot let out his animal instincts. That night, Perot continued to transform and release his inner beast. The next day, Ji-hyun visited to eat and informed Sung-woo that Perot had taken a sick leave. Sung-woo understood, knowing that Perot belonged to the Uruk, a well-known warrior clan. Ji-hyun thanked Sung-woo for his help. As Perot's guardian, Ji-hyun insisted on repaying Sung-woo, who menacingly smiled and brought out an ominous ingredient. Ji-hyun wanted to repay the favor differently, but Sung-woo had already started cooking. Days later, Sung-woo broke his knife because he couldn't control his strength while cooking. Sung-woo checked his inventory for a normal knife, but there were none available. He decided to go outside to buy a new one since knives were limited in his inventory. Sung-woo intended to go to a blacksmith to purchase a kitchen knife. They arrived at a workshop called Crystal Valley, where Sung-woo had received an invitation from the city hall. Seo Naria, the guide, asked Sung-woo what he needed. Sung-woo asked for knives, but Naria misunderstood, thinking he wanted a sword instead. Sung-woo clarified that he wanted a kitchen knife. Naria looked down on Sung-woo for ordering something simple in their prestigious shop. She then suggested making a custom order, to which Sung-woo agreed. However, Naria assumed that Sung-woo couldn't afford it. Sung-woo then requested to see an elven artisan, and they went down using an elevator. Nabi expressed discomfort with elven weapons. They arrived in a location with cold temperatures, and Sung-woo was surprised to see a female elf blacksmith who appeared to be highly talented. The elf instructed them to wait, and Sung-woo apologized for the misunderstanding. She introduced herself as Alistair. Sung-woo realized that she had a name from a matriarchal family. Alistair mentioned that no one in Korea had been chosen by her family so far, and she warned that there would be no refund if her work didn't suit Sung-woo's needs. The price she quoted for the kitchen knife surprised Nabi. Alistair suggested that Sung-woo look around the showroom, but Sung-woo declined, seeing it as troublesome. Alistair laughed, knowing that her children wouldn't choose Sung-woo, but he found it bothersome. Alistair took Sung-woo into her showroom, where all the weapons started shaking. Alistair was alarmed and explained that Sung-woo shouldn't treat her children like toys. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out Blee768, who commented, "I couldn't believe when I saw your subs. I expected it to be 100k plus. You're so underrated. Keep it up, love this channel. Please make a part 2 for this BTWD on our Questism video. Thanks for commenting." She knelt on the floor, and Sung-woo reminded her of a warning he had given her 10 years ago. The elven artisan had just completed one of her masterpieces, but somehow it had flown to Sung-woo. Another elf had laughed at Alistair, saying that her masterpiece wasn't anything special. However, eventually, that elf's shield also became attracted to Sung-woo, and this pattern repeated 6 times, earning Sung-woo the title of Elf Item Killer. Alistair was devastated by the loss of her children and became angry at Sung-woo, accusing him of seducing her 88 children. She asked how many elf equipment Sung-woo owned, and he mentioned around 500, which worried her. Alistair feared that they would gather dust in storage and never see the light of day, and she also worried that all 88 of her children would be lonely. Sung-woo appreciated all the weapons and decided to transfer them to suitable owners when the time was right. but he also decided to keep them. He saw a blue gauntlet that was not for him and knew it was meant for Nabi. When Nabi used it, he looked very cute, so Sungwoo took a photo of it. Alistair, the elven blacksmith, continued to cry over her lost weapons, but she finished making the kitchen knife for Sungwoo. Sungwoo loved the knife, and Alistair worried that her children wouldn't find suitable owners. However, Sungwoo assured her that he had a plan for them. The next day, Sungwoo's restaurant posted a bizarre talent challenge with a reward of an Isaac, certified artisan's weapon. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.